Behind Yorkshire's beauty lies something darker. In its castles, churches, and lonely moors, echoes of the dead still stir. What happens when the past refuses to rest? Let's find out. Shibden Hall. At the edge of Halifax, where the hills roll down into mist and stone walls divide the fields, stands Shibden Hall, a Tudor mansion whose ancient timbers have absorbed more than 5 centuries of laughter, sorrow, and whispered fear. Its oak-paneled corridors and uneven staircases carry the weight of generations, and with them a lingering sense that the house itself remembers every joy and every grief that ever passed within its walls. By daylight, the hall is all charm and heritage, a proud relic of Yorkshire's past. But when evening falls and the last visitors leave, a deeper stillness takes hold. It is said that in this silence, a woman in grey begins her restless wanderings. Some believe she is a noble lady from the 17th century, doomed to retrace her final steps again and again. Others whisper that she is Anne Walker, once the companion of Anne Lister, whose story of love and tragedy has been retold in more recent years. After her beloved's death, Anne's mind faltered, and she was taken away to an asylum. Yet locals say her spirit returned to the one place where she truly belonged, to Shibden Hall. Visitors have spoken of a shadowy figure gliding through the corridors and of a coach driven by a headless man that rumbles unseen along the driveway before fading into the wind. There are subtler hauntings too, the scent of lavender in a room where none is kept, or a trace of pipe smoke in the cellar where no one has smoked for decades. Some have felt the sharp slap of an unseen hand upon their neck and dared not look behind them. Perhaps it is memory itself that stirs here, not the dead, but the very soul of the house echoing its past. Yet for those who walk its creaking floors after dark, there is always that uneasy thought that history never truly sleeps. And when the night deepens over Halifax, Shibden Hall seems to breathe once more, as if its ghosts are waiting for another to join them. Hickleton Hall. Set amidst quiet woodland near Doncaster lies Hickleton Hall, a grand Georgian mansion whose graceful facade hides a strange and unnerving stillness. For over 2 centuries, its long corridors have echoed with the footsteps of nobility servants, and if legend is to be believed, the laughter of children long since gone. The hall was built in the early 18th century for the Earls of Halifax, a family whose fortunes and faith were woven into Yorkshire's landed history. During the Second World War, the house was used as a convalescent home, its grand rooms filled with soldiers recovering from battle. Later, it became a care home, and for a time, it stood empty, its windows shuttered, its gardens overgrown. Locals say that this was when the whispering began, again faint at first, then unmistakable. Visitors and caretakers have reported the unmistakable sound of children at play. Giggles echo down the stairwell, a ball bounces once upon the marble floor, and soft footsteps patter from room to room. Yet no living child is ever seen. A former housekeeper once told of hearing a nursery rhyme being sung in the dark, the words, old and oddly distorted, fading away just as she entered the corridor. Others have felt a tug on their sleeve, as if by a tiny, unseen hand. Some believe the spirits belong to the children of a former master of the hall who died of fever during a long Yorkshire winter. Others say they are the ghosts of evacuees from the war years, children separated from their families, lingering still in the only home they knew. Whatever their origin, the feeling here is not one of menace, but of sad innocence, trapped in endless twilight. Many who have stayed overnight describe the same chilling contrast the joy of laughter rising from empty halls, the warmth of young voices where none should be. And when dawn comes to Hickleton, the great house stands serene once more, its windows bright and harmless. Yet those who have heard the children swear that somewhere within those quiet rooms, playtime never truly ends. Holy Trinity Church. Hidden behind ancient walls and narrow lanes, Holy Trinity Church on Micklegate is one of York's oldest surviving sanctuaries, a place where centuries of prayer, grief, and memory still seem to hang in the air. Its crooked tower and leaning gravestones speak of age and endurance, of a building that has seen every turn of the city's long and turbulent story. Yet, beneath its quiet dignity, lies something that unsettles even the faithful tales of spirits that linger among the pews. The church dates back to the 12th century, its stones darkened by time and candle smoke. Pilgrims once rested here before crossing the River Ouse on their way north. Soldiers passed through during the Civil War, and plague victims were buried in the yard when death came swiftly to York. Each generation left a trace, and perhaps a few who never left at all. Those who come to pray or explore often speak of a young girl and her mother, both dressed in 17th century clothing, standing quietly near the chancel. The child is said to clutch a small posy of dried flowers, her face pale and solemn. When approached, both figures fade like breath on a mirror. A church warden once described seeing them at dusk, motionless in the candlelight, before they vanished entirely. There are reports of another presence too, an elderly woman walking alone along the south aisle, her head bowed as though in prayer. Some believe she was a parishioner, lost during the Great Plague, forever returning to her seat. Others think she may have been a caretaker from later years, still tending to her beloved church. Visitors sometimes feel a sudden chill beside the ancient font or hear the faint scrape of a chair moving when no one else is near. Musicians rehearsing for services have stopped mid-note, certain they heard quiet footsteps crossing the nave. Whether these phantoms are echoes of grief or the remnants of faith, too strong to fade, no one can say. But when dusk falls over Micklegate and the bells toll softly through the gathering mist, Holy Trinity seems less like a building and more like a threshold between worlds, one foot in heaven and one still here in York. Ye Olde White Harte, in the heart of Hull's old town, down a narrow lane of cobbles and shadow stands Ye Olde White Harte, a timber-framed tavern where the ale runs deep, the fires crackle, and the past refuses to keep still. Beneath its beams and oak staircases lingers the atmosphere of centuries gone by, for this is no ordinary inn. It is said that within these very walls, the seeds of rebellion against King James II were first sown in 1688, and some whisper that the conspirators never truly left. By day, it is a friendly public house filled with laughter and chatter. But as darkness settles and the city outside falls silent, the mood inside shifts. Bar staff tell of footsteps on the upper floor, slow and deliberate, long after closing time. Keys on a hook have been seen swinging violently on their own, accompanied by a sudden plunge in temperature. Glasses rattle, doors open without a hand, and a faint woman's sigh drifts through the bar as though from someone unseen and weary of waiting. One landlord recalled hearing a piercing scream echo from the staircase just before midnight, yet when he searched, the building was empty. On the CCTV, a flicker of light passed through the frame like a candle flame carried by invisible fingers. Patrons have glimpsed a dark figure in the corner, its outline like a man cloaked and hooded, and upstairs, a lady in blue has been seen wandering aimlessly, her expression lost and sorrowful. Legend holds that a tragic death once occurred in one of the upper rooms. A young woman wronged her grief, imprinting itself upon the inn for eternity. Others believe the hauntings stem from the plotting of the Glorious Revolution, when secrets and fear filled every corner. Whatever the cause, the old tavern seems alive with more than memory. Visitors who linger too long speak of a pressure on the air, a watchful stillness that tightens like breath held. And when the lights are dimmed and the last door is locked, ye Olde White Harte remains awake, a place where history still drinks beside the living unseen, but never truly gone. Temple Newsam House, on the eastern edge of Leeds, surrounded by rolling parkland and ancient trees, rises Temple Newsam House, a grand Tudor Jacobean mansion whose beauty masks a legacy steeped in tragedy and ghostly sorrow. Built upon land once owned by the Knights Templar, the estate carries a lineage that stretches back to the 12th century. Within its sweeping halls and candlelit galleries, echoes of the past seem to breathe with a life of their own. The house has seen centuries of noble families, lavish banquets and royal visitors, yet also its share of misfortune. One of its most famous tales tells of Mary Ingram, granddaughter of Sir Arthur Ingram, who was once attacked by a highwayman on her way home from a party. The thief stole her cherished earrings, a christening gift of deep sentimental value. Distraught beyond reason, Mary locked herself away, refusing food or comfort, and eventually starved herself to death. In death, it is said she became the Blue Lady of Temple Newsam, forever wandering the corridors in her pale gown and lace shawl, searching for what was taken from her. Others have encountered a shadowed monk gliding silently through the long gallery, his hood drawn low, his face hidden from sight. A downcast Knight Templar has been seen in the courtyard, his armor dull with age, his purpose unknown. Doors in the south wing are known to open and close by themselves, and terrible screams echo from the Red Room, though no one can ever find their source. Perhaps most chilling are the reports of a child emerging from a cupboard only to vanish before startled onlookers. Staff have heard the sound of heavy furniture dragging across the floors above them when every room stood empty. Some speak too of Phoebe Gray, a nursemaid murdered by a jealous servant whose soft weeping can still be heard late at night. Whether remnants of restless souls or the echoes of sorrow imprinted upon these ancient walls, Temple Newsam seems to breathe with unseen life. Even now, when the moonlight falls across its long windows and the air grows still, it is easy to believe that its ghosts have never truly departed. Thackray Museum of Medicine, not far from the great arches of St. James's Hospital, stands a building that once pulsed with the clamour and suffering of Victorian medicine. Today, it is the Thackray Museum of Medicine, a celebrated exhibition of Britain's medical past. But when the visitors have gone and the galleries lie empty, some say the spirits of the old infirmary come back to life. The museum occupies what was once the Leeds Union Workhouse, built in the mid-19th century to house the destitute and the dying. Here, generations of the poor endured grim conditions, their final days spent in narrow wards, heavy with disinfectant and despair. Later, the site became part of St. James's Hospital, where thousands were treated, healed, or lost. It is hardly surprising that echoes of human suffering might linger in its walls. Caretakers have reported footsteps along deserted corridors, the rhythmic sound of boots on tile, as though an unseen nurse still makes her rounds. During renovations, builders heard knockings and bangs from empty rooms, and one swore he saw a woman in 18th century dress, watching from a window a figure who smiled faintly and waved before vanishing. Staff have smelled the acrid scent of urine and carbolic, sharp and unmistakable, even when the building's plumbing lay untouched. At night, the old wards take on a chilling life of their own. Security guards describe hearing the squeal of trolley wheels and the faint rattle of glass medicine bottles. One visitor, during a night tour, felt a sudden grip on his shoulder, cold and firm. Yet when he turned, no one was there. Others have spoken of a man in a white coat, his face blurred, striding purposefully through the shadows, before dissolving into thin air. Whether these encounters are restless memories or echoes of compassion and pain, no one can be sure. But when the lights dim and the exhibits fall silent, the Thackray Museum becomes something far older and more unsettling, not just a monument to healing, but a place where the line between patient and ghost grows perilously thin. Dean Court Hotel. In the shadow of York, Minster facing the great cathedral's soaring towers, stands the Dean Court Hotel, a graceful Victorian building whose elegant rooms have long offered comfort to travelers. Yet behind its refined appearance lies one of York's most quietly disturbing hauntings. Guests and staff alike speak of invisible presences, sudden chills, and the sense of being watched from corners where no one stands. The hotel's history stretches back to the mid-19th century, when it served as a residence for cathedral staff and visiting clergy. Over time, it became a grand hotel welcoming pilgrims, soldiers, and tourists alike. But even the earliest records mention strange events, unexplained noises in the cellars, objects that refused to stay where they were placed, and soft footsteps pacing the halls after midnight. The most persistent legend tells of the Mad Maid, a servant girl said to have worked in the hotel's cellars many generations ago. She was known for her diligence, but also for her isolation, often seen talking quietly to herself in the shadows. When she died, suddenly, some say by her own hand, the disturbances began. Today, staff still report hearing the scrape of buckets, the clatter of cleaning tools, and the faint hum of a woman's voice, rising from the basement when it should be empty. Guests in the upper rooms tell of doors slamming in the dead of night, or of awakening to find a pressure upon the bed, as though someone invisible had sat down beside them. Some describe being unable to move, paralyzed by an unseen weight on their chest. Room 36 in particular is known for a cold spot that never warms, no matter how high the heating is turned. There are other sightings too, that of a Roman soldier glimpsed for a moment in the corridor, his figure faint and translucent, perhaps a remnant of the ancient city that lies buried beneath York's streets. Whether it is grief-guilt or something older that haunts these halls, the Dean Court remains a place where comfort and unease intertwine, where each whisper of the minster's bells might wake the past once more. Skipsea Castle. Along the lonely coast near Driffield lie the earthwork remains of Skipsea Castle, a Norman motte and bailey now reduced to grassy mounds and windswept trenches. The sea creeps ever closer to its ruined edge, as though nature itself conspires to reclaim what once belonged to conquest and blood. Here, amidst the silence of gulls and the whisper of long grass, the ghost of Lady de Bevere is said to wander her story, one of betrayal and sorrow beyond imagining. The castle was granted by William the Conqueror to Drogo de Bevere, a Flemish knight renowned for his ferocity in battle. He built his fortress at Skipsea soon after the Norman invasion, its wooden towers commanding the marshes and coastline. But Drogo's cruelty was legendary, and within those walls, he turned his temper upon his own household. His wife, the gentle Lady de Bevere, endured his rages in fearful silence until one night she was gone. According to the legend, Drogo poisoned her, some say by accident, others in cold malice. Whatever the truth, he fled England in haste, leaving behind a mystery that would never rest. It was only generations later that local men digging near the old cellars uncovered a woman's bones, wrapped in the remnants of fine cloth. Since then, her spirit has been seen crossing the ruins at twilight, her gown billowing in the wind, her face turned forever toward the sea. Those who have visited the site after dusk speak of a pale figure gliding over the mound, her light form flickering like moonlight through mist. Drivers on the nearby road have braked sharply, believing they saw a woman step suddenly into their path. Others describe the chill of unseen hands brushing their arms, or the faint, sorrowful sound of weeping carried on the wind, whether born of guilt, grief, or legend. Lady de Bever's story endures as the soul of Skipsea itself, fragile, haunting, and unending. And when the tide rises beneath a silver moon, it is said her shadow still crosses the castle hill, seeking peace that the centuries have never granted. St. John the Baptist Church. High on the moorland slopes above Sheffield, the ancient church of St. John the Baptist in Penistone watches over its graveyard with a quiet, solemn grace. From a distance, it appears peaceful, its grey stone softened by moss and centuries of weather. Yet beneath that calm surface lies one of Yorkshire's most unsettling legends, a story of midnight wailing, disturbed graves, and the uneasy spirits of the dead. The church dates back to Norman times, its foundations resting upon even older ground, once believed to have been sacred long before Christianity came to the valley. Over the centuries, generations were laid to rest in its yard, farmers, miners, and whole families lost to plague and famine. But in the early 19th century, Penistone gained a darker reputation when resurrection men began plundering graves under the cover of darkness, selling freshly buried bodies to medical schools for dissection. It is said that one stormy night, a local watchman heard the sound of shovels scraping near the boundary wall. When he approached, the noise stopped, but from one of the open graves came the sound of a woman's distressed wailing, as though someone alive was being buried beneath the soil. The watchman fled in terror, and by dawn, the grave appeared undisturbed. Yet ever since, the same mournful cry has been heard again and again, drifting across the churchyard just before midnight. Modern visitors still report strange occurrences. Some claim to hear the faint clink of metal tools or see shadows moving among the headstones when the moon is high. A local historian once described standing near the porch and hearing the rhythmic thud of digging coming from beneath his feet, a sound that faded only when he stepped away. Whether the cries belong to the victims of grave robbers or to spirits angered by the disturbance of their rest, none can say. But few linger here after dark. As the wind rises through the trees and the tower clock strikes 12, St. John's seems to breathe with its dead once more, a churchyard, where the ground itself remembers the horror of its past. Jervaulx Abbey, amid the gentle hills near Ripon, hidden by trees and the turning of quiet lanes, stand the ruins of Jervaulx Abbey, once a proud Cistercian monastery, now a haunting shell of arches and moss-covered stone. Founded in the 12th century, it was among the richest abbeys in northern England, famed for its hospitality and its herds of white cattle. But when Henry VIII's dissolution swept through the land, its brothers were driven out, its altars torn down, and its cloisters left to the mercy of wind and time. Today, the abbey is a place of great beauty and deep silence. Yet that silence is not always empty. Travelers who approach along the narrow road from Middleham speak of a monk in a dark habit seen crossing the lane on the sharp left bend that leads toward the ruins. His form is clear, his step purposeful, yet when drivers brake in alarm, he has already vanished. For decades, witnesses have told the same story a single figure, walking steadily toward the abbey as though returning to his nightly duties. Some say this is the ghost of Brother Martin, a lay monk who remained at Jervaulx after its closure, tending the grounds until his death. Others believe it is a memory imprinted upon the land, a fragment of devotion too strong to fade. On still evenings, when mist rises from the meadows, visitors describe hearing the faint toll of a bell, though no bell has rung there for centuries. One man recalled stepping into the cloister at dusk and feeling a sudden wave of cold air, followed by the scent of beeswax and incense and the soft murmur of chanting from nowhere. His companion heard nothing at all. Whether born of faith or longing, the spirit of Jervaulx seems bound to its stones, not in malice, but in quiet endurance. And when moonlight falls through the broken arches and the grass glimmers silver underfoot, it is easy to imagine that somewhere within the shadows, a lone monk still walks his eternal path home. If Yorkshire's ghosts have stirred your curiosity, there's more waiting in the shadows. Subscribe to Creepy Experience, share your thoughts below, and join us next time where another haunting tale awaits.